I am really interested in like the theory of change from the core of the US empire, which I'm currently based in the UK. So we are in the inner circle with you guys, although you're the leader for sure. So as we know for the audience, again, to reiterate that imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism. So it stands to reason that although most people might not acknowledge the links between US imperialist foreign policy and the deterioration of the US as a country, the obstacles that socialist movements faced internally, same with any country in the global north, really, are very much part of the wider Cold War between communism and imperialism. So, meaning, in other words, just to say, to explain further for the audience, I'm really hammering in on this point that if we need socialist policies, we do need to address imperialism because anything that we do, it's going to be smashed basically by imperialism within the country, and out externally. I mean, more so externally, but we're living in the global north. So, what is your theory of change and progress from the US, especially? Because everybody has a slight, so many people have different ones. But what's your theory of change for the US?
That's a really good question. Theory of change on the US. My theory of change for the US is more about getting rid of a system that was designed to be only meant for a few and completely erasing it and building up a system that is meant for every single one of us, no matter who we are or our background. The theory of change involves all aspects of life that are necessary for us to live and thrive, that it has to be provided through the collective. One of my favorite phrases that actually I've heard over the last few years was a phrase from Xi Jinping, where he used the phrase common prosperity. Now, I changed the word a little bit in my head to collective prosperity, but it's still the same thing, just a semantics thing. But meaning, our country cannot move forward unless everybody is given the ability, the agency, and the tools to prosper. You cannot have prosperity if people are hungry. So guess what? We have to take care of that. You cannot prosper if people are unhoused. So you have to take care of that. You cannot have prosperity if people do not have education or the means to be able to educate themselves. So you have to take care of that, right? You cannot prosper without a viable and thriving environment. So you have to take care of that. You cannot prosper in a system where you are not in control of the means of production. So we have to take care of that. And so all these different things encompass means that the control needs to be in the sphere of the collective. So when it comes to education, you should not be paywalled for education. I think education should be free, so therefore it should be not be paywalled. Now, a lot of people will go, well, nothing is free. And it's like, yes, absolutely genius. But I also believe that the people who work in our education should also be paid very well. And also, if the government is ran by the workers, then guess what? We understand the value of education. We want to make sure that people who do educate us are also living well and compensated well. Meaning, instead of spending money and billions of dollars on machines that kill people, I want us to spend billions of dollars on educators, on people that heal us, on farmers and people who are in agriculture that feed us. I want to spend that money on making our environment not only safer, but also make it thrive. All these different things encompassing, and we all do it collectively so that everybody is able to do it. I think that people should also, who are the ones who actually build the house, be the ones who are well compensated. And so, in my theory of change, a dignified life means that is for everyone, regardless of who you are. There has to be a floor where it is unconscionable for somebody to go hungry. It is unconscionable for somebody to be homeless. It is unconscionable for somebody to not get education. Because if somebody, like for instance, and maybe I'm very radical for this, but if you want to have the education level of a doctorate in a specific area, you should not be paywalled from getting that education at all. Because that education may help us collectively move as a species forward if that person has access to it. And not access as, well, we have access to it, but we just have to come up with all the money. No, all you have to do is show up for class. That's it. And that makes it easier. And think about all the kids in the poorest areas who have this brilliant mind that's able to use divergent thinking, but because they have a barrier to their education, they cannot utilize that powerful brain of theirs in order to be able to access these educations so that the synapses in their brain open up and then they can actually go, oh, wait, we can do this even better. But we can't because they're too poor to get that education, or they're too poor to feed themselves, so they starve to death, or they're too poor to have housing. And so, therefore, we just let them die on the street. And so, my theory of change really is about dignity for everybody, no matter who you are. And this also solves a lot of the secondary and tertiary issues surrounding that, because we do know that through studies right now that poverty and crime are linked very closely together. When poverty goes up, crime goes up at a commensurate rate because one feeds into the other. So if you did a war on poverty, then that means that you are diminishing poverty. That means crime also goes down at a commensurate rate. It's not going to completely be eliminated. You also have to open up opportunity, which means, lack of opportunities need to be addressed as well. But the poverty is one of the main contributing factors. And so I don't want to have an area that's crime ridden. And so if that means by that we reduce the poverty in a given area, and if that means that you have just one house to live in instead of two or three, well, I think that's fair. I do not think that it is worth letting somebody starve just so that you can have extra food that you're never going to eat. To me, that's inhumane. I don't think it's worth having somebody unhoused just because you exploit either yourself or other people enough to have more than one house and then they remain unhoused. But here's the crazy part. We actually have more than enough. This mindset of scarcity is absolutely foolish because it does not exist. It's just political will that is required. We have massive amounts of land and massive amounts of resources and very efficient ways of being able to utilize the land and the resources that we have in order to be able to make sure everybody is educated, housed, fed, clothed. We have these resources. The thing is that the resources are being taken up by a small few. And it should not be in the hands of a small few. It needs to be among the entire collective. And we need to democratically choose how it is being implemented and used. And most people would say everybody eats. I liken it to if you ever went to a cookout or a picnic or a buffet. And have you ever gotten your plate and then you sat down and then you finished eating, but you notice some people haven't eaten yet. Do you feel kind of funny about going back to the line and then Getting more food while knowing that some of the people who are also there haven't eaten yet? Wouldn't it be more respectful to wait till they ate first before you went for seconds? That's basically the society I want to live in. Everybody eats.